objectives. Firstly, all of you are going to be able to understand what we mean by the term primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Secondly, you're going to be able to understand what we mean by adding value. And thirdly, you're going to be able to understand what we mean by chain of production. A few keywords you're going to need to know: primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, adding value, and the chain of production. And we're going to be using that throughout this lesson. So, we've got three types of sectors: the primary, secondary and tertiary. The primary sector, this is where we extract, collect material. Okay? If you want to make a product, read material, we refer to that as raw materials. And so I'm going to use the concept of a tree. And this plant here, as you can see, we're going to pretend it's a tree. Someone somewhere in this country or in another country chops down the tree to make some paper. Okay? So, at the moment we're in the primary sector, we're chopping down the tree, we're collecting the raw materials. And a few examples here of what we could term as the primary sector is chopping down a tree, fishing for fish, or digging for some metal. We're all collecting raw materials at this stage. We then move on to start manufacturing that product, and this is where we move on to the secondary sector. The secondary sector is where we work on that product, that raw material, and move it and change it into a product. We manufacture it in a factory, we work on it, and that's where we move into the secondary sector. I tend to call it the manufacturing sector. It's where we work on something and create a finished product. And examples here you can see are making shirts from cotton, manufacturing tables from wood, or making plastic cups from oil. Okay? And those are all manufacturing processes, which is termed the secondary sector. But with this paper, okay, it's no good just having it there, a factory full of paper. We need to get rid of it. What we do here is we retail it or we sell it on. And this is where we move into the tertiary sector. The tertiary sector is selling a product in return for some money. As you can now see, we've moved along a chain of production. We've started there with the tree in the primary sector. We've moved on to the secondary sector and produced or manufactured some paper. We've then moved into the tertiary sector. We're now going to sell it. And examples of those could be, for example, JJB selling some football shirts, a fishmonger selling some fish. Selling the process, the product, is all about the tertiary sector. The tertiary sector also includes providing a service, right? Because here we're selling a service, for example, a legal advice service, or a physiotherapist as a massage, as a service. We're part of the tertiary sector here. This is what we call the chain of production. We start from the primary sector. So the picture here, we're collecting raw materials. We then move into the secondary sector where we actually manufacture that product, and we finally move on to the tertiary sector where we sell the product. So as you can see, collecting raw materials, manufacturing it or working on it in a factory, for example, and lastly selling that product in the tertiary sector. Lastly, I want to explain to you what we mean by adding value. If you can think back, excuse me, sorry. Adding value, okay, is all about moving a product from the primary sector into the tertiary sector. As it moves along that journey, you're adding value to that. If you imagine a tree or a lump of wood, it's not worth much, but as you manufacture it into a lump of paper, it's worth a lot more. When you package it up and sell it, it's worth a lot more. And as you can see in this diagram, you can see that that lump of wood isn't worth much. But as we move it along and create a product in a factory and sell it, you can see the value is very small at the beginning, it gets bigger, and bigger. Okay? So, my question to you, do you know what the primary sector is? Do you know what the secondary sector is? Do you know what the tertiary sector is? Can you define that if you were asked that in an exam? Would you be able to answer the question if it asked you, do you know what adding value is? Would you be able to ask or answer a question if you knew what the chain of production was? Good luck.